God told me to warn you. Someone wants to return, but God says, watch alone carefully. A quiet feeling may have brought you here today, and if it did, trust that for a moment. Not because you need answers right away, but because something inside you recognized a familiar energy before your mind could explain it. As you listen, you may begin to understand why certain thoughts have been returning lately, why certain memories have felt unusually close, and why a chapter you believed was finished suddenly feels present again. This message is not about rushing toward a conclusion. It is about noticing what your heart has already been trying to tell you. Stay with this because there is something important here. There are seasons in life when people drift away, not because the connection was meaningless, but because both people were still becoming who they needed to be. Time passes, circumstances change, experiences reshape perspectives. Then one day, without warning, a name appears in your thoughts. A memory surfaces while you are busy doing something ordinary. You remember a conversation, a smile, a moment that once seemed small but now carries unexpected weight. Sometimes these moments arrive because healing is happening. Sometimes they arrive because understanding is growing. And sometimes they arrive because a connection that once felt distant is quietly moving back into view. What makes this situation different is that you have changed. The version of you that once waited, questioned, and searched for explanations is not the same person listening right now. You have walked through lessons that strengthened you in ways no one else could fully see. You learned how to sit with uncertainty. You learned how to keep moving when answers were unavailable. Most importantly, you learned that your value was never dependent on whether someone stayed or left. That growth matters. It matters because if someone truly wishes to return, they are not returning to the same person they once knew. They are returning to someone who has discovered a deeper sense of self. Before anything becomes clear, give yourself permission to observe rather than assume. Not every returning thought demands immediate action. Not every feeling requires a decision today. There is wisdom in watching quietly, listening carefully, and allowing truth to reveal itself naturally. Over the next moments, we are going to explore what this return may really mean, and why your intuition has been paying such close attention lately. Don't miss what comes next, because the deeper reason behind all of this may be very different from what you first imagined. Some connections never disappear completely. They simply become quiet for a while, settling beneath the surface of daily life where they are no longer seen, but are never entirely forgotten. What is interesting is that when someone begins thinking about returning, the change is often felt long before it is spoken. You may have noticed an unusual sense of reflection lately, moments when your mind wandered toward unfinished conversations or unanswered questions. These experiences are not necessarily signs that something is about to happen. Rather, they can be invitations to look at a story from a new perspective. The details that once confused you may now appear clearer because you have gained distance from them. There is something important here, and it begins with understanding how much you have grown since that chapter first unfolded. The person who may be thinking about returning is not carrying the same thoughts they once had. Time has a way of revealing things that pride once concealed. People often realize the value of a connection only after they have lived without it for a while. They remember the comfort of being understood, the peace of being accepted, and the rare feeling of being able to be themselves without pretending. Yet what matters most is not what they are realizing. What matters most is what you have learned. Your journey was never meant to revolve around someone else's choices. It was meant to lead you toward a stronger relationship with yourself, one built on confidence, patience, and emotional clarity. There is a tendency to imagine that if someone returns, everything will instantly make sense. Real life rarely works that way. Meaningful connections are not strengthened by rushing. They are strengthened by honesty, reflection, and a willingness to see each other clearly. If someone does reappear in your life, the most valuable thing you can bring into that moment is not expectation. It is awareness. Awareness allows you to recognize what feels genuine. Awareness helps you notice whether growth has truly taken place. Awareness protects you from repeating old patterns while remaining open to new possibilities. Stay with us because the next part of this message touches on something many people overlook when faced with a familiar face from the past. Deep down, you may already sense that this story is not really about another person at all. It is about the transformation that occurred within you while nobody was watching. The waiting taught you patience. The silence taught you resilience. The uncertainty taught you trust in your own inner voice. These lessons were not accidents. They prepared you to see situations differently than before. As we continue, you will begin to understand why your personal growth may be the most important piece of this entire picture, and why any return, if it happens, can only be understood through the person you have become today rather than the person you once were. Have you ever noticed how the most meaningful realizations rarely arrive with noise? They come quietly, almost unnoticed at first, like a gentle shift in the atmosphere of your thoughts. One day you find yourself looking at the past without the same weight you once carried. The emotions are still there, but they no longer control the story. That change is powerful because it signals that healing has been taking place beneath the surface. While you were focused on moving forward, growing through ordinary days, and rebuilding your sense of peace, something inside you is becoming stronger. This strength is not loud. It does not seek attention. Yet it changes the way you see everything, including the possibility of someone returning. Stay with this, because what you are beginning to understand may explain why this season feels different from any that came before. Many people believe that closure comes from another person. They imagine that one conversation, one message, or one explanation will suddenly complete what feels unfinished. But life often teaches a different lesson. True closure begins the moment you stop needing someone else to define your worth. It begins when you realize that your peace does not depend on another person's decision. Somewhere along your journey, perhaps without even noticing, you started reaching that place. The questions that once kept you awake no longer hold the same power. The uncertainty that once felt overwhelming has softened. You are no longer standing in the same emotional space where this story began, and that changes everything. What makes this moment meaningful is not the possibility of a return. It is your ability to meet any situation with a clearer heart. Imagine how different your perspective is now compared to months or even years ago. Back then, emotions may have spoken louder than wisdom. Now there is a deeper balance within you. You understand that every connection enters your life for a reason, whether it stays for a season or continues for a lifetime. You understand that people are complex, that growth is rarely linear, and that timing often reveals truths that urgency can never uncover. There is something important here. When you stop chasing certainty, clarity has a way of finding you. As you continue listening, pay attention to the quiet confidence that has been growing inside you. It is easy to overlook because it developed gradually, one lesson at a time. Yet it is this confidence that allows you to recognize what truly belongs in your life and what no longer aligns with the person you have become. The next part of this message explores a realization that many people never fully embrace. Sometimes the greatest gift hidden within a returning connection is not the relationship itself, but the understanding it awakens within your own heart. Don't miss what comes next, because that realization may change the way you see this entire story. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when you stop asking, will they come back? And begin asking, what have I discovered about myself through all of this? That question changes everything. It shifts your attention away from uncertainty and toward growth. When you look back honestly, you may realize that the waiting was never empty. Even the quiet periods carried lessons. Even the moments that felt confusing were shaping your perspective. The person you are today carries a wisdom that could only have been gained by living through experiences that stretched your heart and challenged your understanding. There is something important here because this realization marks the difference between simply remembering the past and truly learning from it. What if the reason this connection keeps appearing in your thoughts is not because you are meant to relive an old story, but because you are finally ready to see it clearly? Sometimes distance removes the emotional fog that once surrounded a situation. You begin noticing details you overlooked before. You understand motivations that once seemed mysterious. You recognize both the beauty and the imperfections of what was shared. This kind of clarity is valuable because it allows you to appreciate a connection without becoming trapped by it. It allows gratitude to exist alongside wisdom. It allows memories to remain meaningful without controlling your future. One of the most powerful signs of growth is the ability to welcome possibilities without surrendering your peace. If someone returns, you no longer need to meet that moment with fear, urgency, or unrealistic expectations. You can simply observe. You can listen. You can allow actions, words, and intentions to reveal themselves naturally. That calm approach is not weakness, it is evidence of maturity. It shows that your heart has learned how to remain open while still honoring its own value. Stay with this, because the final piece of this message may be the one that speaks most deeply to where you are right now. The truth is that the connection you have been searching for may be larger than any single relationship. It may be connected to your journey towards self-understanding, self-respect, and inner peace. Every experience, every conversation, every goodbye, and every unexpected memory has played a role in bringing you to this moment of awareness. As we move into the final part, you will discover why the most important return in this story may not be someone else's return to your life, but your own return to the parts of yourself that were always worthy of love, trust, and acceptance. The ending of this message is not about looking backward. It is about seeing your path forward with a calmer and clearer heart. Perhaps the reason you were guided to this message today is not because you needed another prediction, another answer, or another reason to keep looking over your shoulder. Perhaps it is because your heart was ready for a quieter truth. Life has a way of bringing certain people into our thoughts when we are finally capable of understanding their place in our story. Not because we must return to the past, but because we can now see it with gentleness instead of confusion. If someone wishes to reconnect, let that possibility unfold in its own time. You do not have to force anything. You do not have to chase clarity. The peace you have been building within yourself is already more valuable than any answer you once thought you needed. As you reflect on everything shared in this message, notice how much has changed inside you. There was a time when uncertainty felt heavy. There was a time when silence seemed to demand explanations. Yet here you are, stronger than you realize, carrying lessons that have quietly transformed the way you see yourself and others. The growth did not happen all at once. It happened in small moments of courage, patience, and self-discovery. It happened every time you chose to keep moving forward, even when the path ahead was unclear. Those choices matter. They became the foundation of the person you are becoming. If someone returns, welcome the moment with wisdom rather than expectation. Allow reality to speak louder than assumptions. Let authenticity reveal itself naturally. And if no return ever comes, understand that nothing has been lost from your journey. The love, understanding, strength, and awareness you gained remain yours. They were never dependent on another person's presence. They were gifts uncovered within your own heart. There's something important here. Your value has never been determined by who stays, who leaves, or who comes back. Your value has always existed independently of every chapter and every outcome. So take a deep breath and carry this message with you. Not as a promise about someone else, but as a reminder about yourself. You are allowed to move forward without bitterness. You are allowed to remember without becoming stuck. You are allowed to remain open to new possibilities while honoring the wisdom you have gained. The story that matters most is the one you continue writing from this day forward. Let it be guided by clarity, patience, and self-respect. And if a familiar face ever appears again along your path, you will not meet it as the person you once were. You will meet it as the person you have become, and that makes all the difference.